Good Morning Football reacts to the Saints' dominant offense versus the Cowboys from Week 2. Ladies and gentlemen, 50 people had to have sent me this video. I cannot wait to watch it. The Good Morning Football crew, including my guy, Kyle Brandt, KB. I used to listen to Jim Rome a ton, and at the time, Kyle Brandt was a producer on Jim Rome, and a lot of the times he would steal the show. So I'm very excited to see this. Ooh, let's dig in.
They're playing it. I mean, the Saints have had 91 points put up on the board in the first 2 weeks of the season. Peter, is this the offense that you just never saw coming? But my goodness, do you love seeing it?
Well, let's first set the stage here. This is Dallas's home opener. They're coming off a huge win. Dak got his money. CD got his money. Before the game, you got one of the Paul brothers out there, and he's with Mike Tyson. And
Which Paul brother?
Logan Paul, the bigger one. Yeah,
okay.
Logan Paul's out there.
Jake Paul was out there. All right, Jake Paul and Mike Tyson were out there.
Mike Tyson, Jerry Jones, Charlotte Jones, Stephen Jones, Brady's out there, Aaron Andrews out there, and it's a parade out there in the middle of the field. It's the home opener. They open up the doors to the stadium, the AT&T stadium, and all the fans come flooding in, and it's like, we're here, we're door busting for this Cowboys team.
I love that shot.
And then the Saints.
By the way, it was Jake Paul.
It was Jake Paul.
Thank you, KB. I told you KB's the man.
Score six touchdowns on their first 6 possessions, and Derek Carr looks unbelievable. Show the highlights, show the footage, because Carr was everything.
Let's show Derek
You want to
Carr.
talk about spoiling a home opener. This thing was over before it started. Carr's throwing.
Yeah, it was. It was dominant. It was completely dominant. I mean, the Saints have not trailed this season. The Saints haven't even really been in a competitive game this season for any extended period of time. Because like they just said, yeah, this was over quick. I mean, this was over pretty fast. And let's also set the stage. This was after the Saints beat the Carolina Panthers, and a lot of the conversation was, well, it's the Carolina Panthers. Yeah, it's just the Panthers. Who cares? A lot of the conversation was, well, you know, the Saints offensive line and the Dallas Cowboys defensive line is a huge mismatch. So that was the stage. The narratives were out there, and the Saints rolled into town.
Bombs to Shaheed, who I love wearing number 22.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And he's not a running back. He's a wide receiver wearing 22. I love that.
We have to think about that.
There's got to be some others, I'm sure. Little dump off pass to Kamara becomes a big play. And you're saying, wow, this offense, like the same players are there. Like, what is going on? Can I introduce you guys to Klint Kubiak?
Go on.
Does that name?
Also, real quick, the defense needs a bit of a shout out here, because that 19, 7 of it is from a broken play with CeeDee Lamb. Now that can absolutely happen. I mean, CeeDee Lamb, but this is closer to just a 44-12 beatdown. I mean, and then when you factor in that the Saints didn't really do much in the second half, this thing could have got way. I mean, this honestly, if the Saints wanted to, you're talking about a game that could have been mid-50s, 60-something to 12. I mean, it's just an insane, like, 44-19 doesn't really do justice on what the Saints really did to Dallas. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. The New Orleans Saints made the Dallas Cowboys look like the Carolina Panthers, and that's a hard thing to do.
Can we talk Klint Kubiak at 8:22 in the morning on the East Coast? Klint Kubiak is the offensive coordinator. They hired him from San Francisco, where last year he was the passing game coordinator working with Purdy, and that offense out there in San Francisco is obviously Gary Kubiak's son. 15 years in the league, has bounced around as far as the offensive roles go, but Klint came in, and it felt like it was a bit of a lateral move because he's not the head coach. Dennis Allen's still the head coach, but he went from being the offensive passing game coordinator for a Shanahan team, which basically means you're never going to call the plays, to running the offense in New Orleans. And if you want to see a huge delta between a team last year and this year through 2 weeks, it's the New Orleans Saints offense. Credit to Derek Carr, credit to all the other players on offense, and credit to that offensive line, including my guy, Taliesin Fuanga, who was basically just removing people yesterday. But Klint Kubiak's name needs to be household soon enough. The Saints look like they're the best offense in sports 2 weeks in.
Yeah, I mean, Klint Kubiak, his name is officially a household name after today. I mean, I'm filming this Monday. I've heard some glazing on different levels from everybody, from the Colin Cowherds of the world to Peter Schrager right there during his little monologue. I mean, everybody, Klint Kubiak is the toast of the town. I've heard I mean, Colin Cowherd said maybe Klint Kubiak could get a head coaching job before the season ends. I mean, it's here, right? We shouldn't be surprised. I mean, after what the Saints have done the first 2 weeks, I've heard everything from Klint Kubiak is the greatest offensive mind in football to the Saints will win the Super Bowl to how Derek Carr for MVP. It's all on the table. It's all right in front of us. And every take, it's not crazy. I mean, right now, it is not crazy. I was having this conversation today. Anything that you think is possible for the Saints right now, you have to really, really consider. I mean, 2 weeks ago, I would have said, I'll take 10 wins. I'll take 11 wins. Right now, you look at the Saints' schedule, and you tell me 12, 13 wins, even though it seemed crazy 2 weeks ago, I can buy into that, especially with all the injuries right now. You look at teams like the Rams, who are have completely fallen apart. Spoiler alert, we play the Rams. You look at a team like the Browns, who got dog-walked at home by the Cowboys. Spoiler alert, we play the Browns. And guess where we play both those teams? At home. You start looking at the schedule, and 13-ish wins, 12 wins, certainly not out of the picture, and that gets you in the conversation. Forget about winning the division. That gets you in the conversation for the 1 seed or the 2 seed, like hosting playoff games. The Detroit Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown's hurt. I mean, there's injuries everywhere, all over the place. And, I mean, the Saints are just the one team that seems to be rolling. And I will say this, too. They are a team, roster-wise, with a ton of continuity. They're a team that went through this kind of headache period that we're seeing the Falcons go through. Granted, it's more of a, Achilles ache period for the Falcons. But we saw the Saints go through that last year with Derek Carr and Chris Olave yelling at each other, Derek Carr and Eric McCoy yelling at each other, Michael Thomas subtweeting Derek Carr basically during the games. So we saw this kind of, just this early period of kind of getting to know each other and going through it and whatnot. Well, now the Saints the roster is flying. The roster is absolutely zooming right now. And we have the perfect system with maybe the best play caller in football running it. And on the flip side, what happens when you free up Dennis Allen from offensive duties? All of a sudden, you have the best defensive coordinator in football running the defense. It really is kind of one of those perfect storms right now where it's like, well, do the Saints have top 5 offense, top 5 defense? Right now they do. Will that continue for the rest of the season? I don't know about all that. But right now, you could make a really strong case that through 2 weeks, the New Orleans Saints are not the best story in football, but they're the best team in football.
Into the season.
And Peter, Klint Kubiak did an amazing job play calling against this defense for the Dallas Cowboys. You look at that Dallas Cowboys defense and what they did to the Cleveland Browns the week before, and look at how they utilized Micah Parsons. We were talking about this last week. They were like, they're showing the offense here, but we were talking about defensively. They were picking their poison. Like Micah was like, I'm going to go this offensive lineman. I'm going to hit that one. And he had a bunch of quarterback hits. He had he had a sack in that game. He was at them. And so what does Klint Kubiak do? He said, you know what? I know how we're going to freeze him. We're going to do rhythm pass. We're going to hit him with the short, nice routes. We're going to hit them with the screen game, the play action. That was the way they were able to slow down this defense. And it was the only way you could, especially when you think about having what you were talking about with Talise Fuaga, a rookie offensive lineman going up against a Micah Parsons.
But see, that's the thing. He really wasn't. He really wasn't going up against Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons was a non-factor. He was already written out of the play. He was designed out of the play. No hate to Pete Carmichael, but all the hate to Pete Carmichael. Last year, we would have lined up in a basic-ass, boring-ass offense, and Pete Carmichael would have asked Trevor Penning or whoever at the time, if it was this roster, he would have asked Talise Fuaga. He would have asked him to go one-on-one with Micah Parsons. And it would have came down to, can this lineman stop Micah Parsons for the entire game? And Micah Parsons would have wreaked havoc. Klint Kubiak does the total opposite. And, ladies and gentlemen, in today's NFL, it is a coordinator's game. It is a scheme game. It is not big man on big man, one-on-one, it's none of that anymore. I mean, you see these schemes now, and San Francisco is a great example. Christian McCaffrey gets hurt. Christian McCaffrey's the offensive player of the year. He probably should have been the MVP last year. and Christian McCaffrey gets hurt, do the 49ers miss even close to a beat against the Jets in week 1 with Christian McCaffrey out? No. Next man up. Next man up, 180 yards. Like it's nothing. We see the Miami Dolphins. Last year, going into the season, how many of y'all were saying Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane are elite level backs? And then look what happens. The offensive line play across the board. You get San Francisco. PFF ranks them as the 20th offensive line last season. Brock Purdy never gets touched. It's just everything is so schematic. Everything is so strategic that these systems are dominating the NFL. Pop quiz. Right now, the top 2 quarterbacks are EPA-wise, PFF-wise, however you want to do it, Derek Carr and Sam Darnold. Is it a shock that both of them are playing in Shanahan systems? Is it a shock that Kevin O'Connell and Klint Kubiak are the 2 orchestrating that? No. This is what the NFL is right now. It is all scheme. It is all system. And it is finding the right people for that system. And Klint Kubiak moonwalked his way into a roster that was perfect for what he wanted to do. I mean, you look at San Francisco's roster, you look at the Saints roster, it's almost like comical how well it translates. You know, what do they want? They want players who can kind of do a bunch of different things. The Saints have Taysom Hill. That alone is crazy how he is the perfect player that can do all those different things. Alvin Kamara, one of the handful of running backs who can do what Christian McCaffrey is asked to do. And then you look at receivers like Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave. I mean, Rashid Shaheed, they were joking around about his number, him not being a running back. I think he got 3 carries against the Cowboys. Rashid Shaheed's in the backfield a ton. You know, the Saints offensive line, the Saints did not have a running back go over 80 yards last season at any game. Alvin Kamara, boom, easy. Week 2, no problem. Alvin Kamara had, I think, 6 total touchdowns last season. He's got 5 right now. Same exact roster.
Quick games, you really throw the defensive linemen off. You throw the defense off. They're constantly having to play catch up, and that offense could never catch up to this, explosive offense. Back-to-back games with 40-plus points. I mean, that's impressive.
I'm going to say it again. I've said this last week. 32. 32 is where the New Orleans Saints ranked preseason on this show and any other show in terms of buzz, hype, conversation. The New Orleans Saints, did we do a single segment on them in the summer? Did anyone on ESPN do a single segment on the New Orleans Saints over the summer? I don't think so. There was more buzz on the Panthers.
Kyle Brandt's cooking. I'm going to tell you that right now. I just want you to know that I think Kyle Brandt is absolutely cooking right now. What he was just saying, I have goosebumps. I have chill goosebumps up and down my arms right now. I might get frostbite from this level of chills. Okay. I'm going to let Kyle, I'm going to let him go for a little bit. So this is one of the rare moments where I'm going to let him go. And I'm not going to react until he gets his point across, because he is cooking.
Single segment on the New Orleans Saints over the summer. I don't think so. There was more buzz on the Panthers. There was more buzz on the Patriots. We talked about them a lot. The Saints were just nothing. And now they've completely lit the world on fire in their first 2 weeks. I think it is so cool. We knew that they were going to have those old war horses on defense. They always have. The DeMario and Cam, and those guys are great. They really are. I just didn't see this Derek Carr coming through the first 2 weeks looking this good. It's been unbelievably fun to show. And I want to make another point about Good Morning Football.
All right, before he makes the second point, let me talk about the first point. 100%. That is what happened this offseason. And I'll give you a little peek behind the curtain of how big media works, or big sports media works at least. One ranking comes out, and the first ranking comes out. This happens for the draft, happens for preseason rankings, happens for all that stuff. It comes out, and then other websites or channels or whatever, they don't want to do the work, or they choose not to do the work, so they just consensus it. They just consensus all these rankings. They're all the same rankings because they're just copy and paste from each other, and they all go with that preconceived notion of the ranking, and then they just fill in the gaps. The first ranking started coming out. The Saints were considered a boring team. The Saints were considered kind of just like a nothing team. So they slotted them in there like 27. Some people slotted them in there like 30, and everyone ran with that. And all offseason, the conversation was, Well, the Saints might be the worst team in the NFL, worst team in the NFC South. When last year, it's a 9-8 team. A 9-8 team who upgrades on the offensive line, upgrades on the defensive line, has an A-plus draft, according to everybody, including Pro Football Focus, and completely overturns their biggest problem of the offensive play calling. Completely changes it, installs a brand new offense. Not just any old offense, the premier offense in the NFL. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, stand up and take a look around. Open the windows. This system is winning and working everywhere. Winning and working at every single stop. The Saints install that, but because no one is looking at the minutia, word of the day, because I think it's been a double word of the day. I think we used that last week. So minutia might be the word of the month. But because no one is looking at what's actually happening, they're just taking these big overarching rankings and just running with them. All you hear is bad offensive line, Derek Carr can't win, boring offense, and Dennis Allen can't win. Well, Dennis Allen is 500 as head coach of the New Orleans Saints. If the Saints beat Philadelphia, Dennis Allen will officially be a game over 500. So this narrative that Dennis Allen can't win in New Orleans or Dennis Allen's been doing a bad job in New Orleans, that's over. Unless he goes on some crazy losing streak, him being the worst coach in the NFL, which I have heard quite a bit in the last couple of weeks, that's got to be over. Patent Analytics, my boy, on Twitter last year, end of the year, he ranked his defensive play callers. Dennis Allen was number one. Number one ranked defensive play caller. So you've got the number one ranked defensive play caller and who as a head coach is around 500, and I have to sit here and listen that he's the worst coach in the NFL? It doesn't make any sense. Derek Carr, in the worst possible situation, misses 2 different halves of games, and the Saints tie for the NFC South. They tie for the division. They almost win the division. Tiebreaker, blowing an 18-point or a 17-point lead in Green Bay. And they go 9-8, and that's it. And you go from 9-8 to the worst team in the NFL. Never made any sense. And unfortunately, it was due to no one paying attention, no one doing the work. Bottom line. And you've got a lot of people right now with a lot of egg on their face. A whole lot. Because how many Saints, worst team in the NFL? Saints, 1 win. Saints, least amount of points scored in the NFL. Saints, Dennis Allen, first coach fired. Spencer Rattler starting over Derek Carr. Bryce Young taking a step forward. The Carolina Panthers making the playoffs. The Carolina Panthers winning the NFC South. All those takes. 2 weeks in, they're gone. They're gone, pecan.
We are not taking this game and pushing it into a Cowboys conversation. We have bylaws here, all right? If you win the game 44-19, you go 2-0, we'll talk about you.
There
I don't
you
care
go,
what
Kyle.
market you're in. I don't care if you're a high school team. I'm sure if you flip a few channels away, they're making this a Cowboys thing. We are going to talk about the Saints fans. And Peter, it's who dat or who day? Who dat? We're going to do who dat this morning. Derek Carr, like last week we had this conversation about like, man, is Baker Mayfield the coolest guy in the NFL? And he really is, even after another week. Derek Carr looks amazing. He looks fun. He looks cool. The vibe is contagious, and it's not often that with him. There's a guy that some of us know who maybe doesn't work for us anymore. We used to talk about Derek Carr, and he used to say, good guy, good quarterback. That's not really a guy that you worry about when you have that quarterback that week. I don't know. It looked like the Cowboys weren't worried about him either, and they just let up another touchdown. Another one. The game's not even going on, and he's somehow still scoring. Saints.
Kyle Brandt, my God. I mean, he is right. Like I'll say it for him because I know he's, you know. You turn it to ESPN, they're talking about the Cowboys. This is a Cowboys conversation. It's a conversation of, oh, maybe the Cowboys weren't as good as we thought. Oh, well, the Cowboys always, I love this. Oh, the Cowboys always lose one early. Just nothing, based in nothingness. So kudos to Good Morning Football. Kudos to Kyle Brandt, Peter Schrager. Kudos to this team and these producers for saying, you know what? Because it would have been real easy. I mean, this is on the NFL Network. It would have been real easy to make this all about the Cowboys. Are the Cowboys in trouble? Mike McCarthy on the hot seat. Dak Prescott, $60 million. CeeDee Lamb just got paid. All these guys got paid. What do the Cowboys have to do? The right to ship. Can the Cowboys still win the Super Bowl? 100%. The headlines would have been there. But, and I also don't, and maybe, I'm down here in the French Quarter. All right. So I'm super close to this team. I mean, obviously. Cover the team every day. But I mean, I didn't realize that New Orleans might as well be on Uranus. Pause. It might as well be on Mars. When did New Orleans become the lowest media market in the world? How some people talk about New Orleans like, well, it's just, I mean, this is one of the biggest travel destinations in the world. We host Super Bowls. We host WrestleManias. We host Final Fours. We are in the rotation, national championship games, Sugar Bowls. When did all of a sudden, like, you look at some of these other teams, not every team doesn't play in New York. Every team doesn't play in Los Angeles. Every team doesn't play in Chicago. I never realized that New Orleans was this like black hole for media markets. I mean, I remember not too long ago, spoiler alert, 4 years ago, when the Saints were one of the most exciting offenses in the NFL. So all it took was 3-4 years, Drew Brees and Sean Payton to leave, and all of a sudden the NFL coverage just erased the Saints off the board. I don't get that. I mean, we were not given very much time to see if we could kind of balance this relevancy. Like the New York Giants, I mean, absolutely putrid, absolutely disgusting what they've been putting on what they've been putting on the field for the last way more than 4 years. I mean, the Saints. It's just you think the Saints would got a little more time. It's not like we were a 2-win team, a 3-win team, a 4-win team. Mickey Loomis kept his ship pretty straight. I mean, we had a 7-win team, and that was the bottom. After that, we got right back up to 9-8, tied for the division, and we just got pushed into obscurity.
We're talking about you. We respect what you're doing. Nice job. Do it again.
Kyle, thank you for laying down the bylaws. I always appreciate staying within the rules. Please, could I have the Alvin Kamara highlights? Because Alvin Kamara was unbelievable yesterday.
That was great.
He had 4 touchdowns. He had 4 touchdowns. The last time he had that many touchdowns was in 2020 when he had 6 touchdowns. Kamara has been this guy for the Saints. Why he was left untapped for a few seasons, we are not sure. And frankly,
I am sure. I am the most sure person on the planet. I'll give you a couple stats. We all know it. New Orleans Saints last season, 2 backs on the field at the same time, 0 times. 0 out of the entire season. 53% of snaps against the Cowboys had 2 backs on the field. Alvin Kamara was underutilized. He was in every single phase. Receiving, all he did was catch dump off, check down passes in the flats, and he was told to go create. Running wise, he was handed the ball and told run straight. Run straight behind a bad offensive line. Now, that's not the case. He's being asked to do what he's great at doing. Every single player on this team is asked to do what they're great at doing. Every lineman. We're not asking any lineman to do what they can't do. That's what happened last year. Hey guys, we understand that you're pretty bad at pass protection. How about you hold pass protection for an extended period of time while we develop these long plays? That's what was happening last year. Same offensive line. That is what I think is the most impressive part. It's not that Klint Kubiak has worked his magic and Alvin Kamara is doing this, or that Chris Olave is doing this, or Rashid Shaheed is doing this. He's taking the same offensive line. You could argue a worse or at least an unproven version of last year's offensive line. And he is not only making them better, but he is making them dominate some of the best defensive lines, or one of the best defensive lines in football, the Dallas Cowboys. Just dominate the game. I mean, this is an Alvin Kamara highlight package here, but you could have a Trevor Penning highlight package, a Talise Fuaga highlight package of just mowing people over. Just destroying people. So that's what I think is impressive. And it goes to show you, if you take the Kansas City Chiefs, who's their right guard? Houston Texans, who's their right guard? Miami Dolphins. How many Miami Dolphins linemen can you name? San Francisco, who's their right tackle? Who's their center? Who's their right guard? I don't know. No one knows. You just assume that those are great offensive lines because the teams perform. And you see they can run the football and the quarterbacks don't get hit. But in reality, it's these coaches and schemes and systems that are doing the most with the players they have. That's the reality of it. You don't need 5 Trent Williams. That's not it. That is not it anymore. So the Saints are proving this new era of football, this new age of thinking, this new innovative kind of style, and I'm loving every second of it. I'm a proud NFL Plus subscriber, and I will absolutely continue to be a proud NFL Plus subscriber if they keep putting shows like this out.
After listening to Peter opine about Kubiak, maybe that's the reason why. Kubiak comes from San Francisco. He learns under Kyle Shanahan. He learns the passing game coordinator ways, and then he comes, he's like, wait a second, I have Alvin Kamara who I get to play with now? Kyle, or Peter, I have to imagine that Kubiak looks at this coming with a Christian McCaffrey and a Deebo Samuel, and he's like, okay, I've learned a couple things now, and look what I can apply against a really good Cowboys defense.
Absolutely. And to do that in Dallas, Jamie, is such a statement as well. But you're right. We saw Kamara get his. We saw Shaheed get his. But we also saw guys like Olave and Taysom Hill. Everyone was involved. So, look, it's 2 weeks into the season, but you're talking about two games where you put up 40 points or more, and that is legit. And Klint Kubiak has found his way. And Alvin Kamara, welcome back to our conversations in the first hour of the show. It's been a while.
Good stuff. I mean, 100%. And it was an easy Sudoku puzzle to solve in the offseason. It seems like now the rest of the media is solving the puzzle. But Klint Kubiak, I mean, it's crazy to sit here and say, like, all of this is because of one person. And sure, it's not one person literally. Obviously, all of his assistants, whatever. But one decision. And no one loves Mickey Loomis more than me. But the fact that Mickey Loomis made this decision to bring in Klint Kubiak and completely, I mean, the Saints offense was catapulted 20 years. We had not changed offense since Sean Payton got here for Hurricane Katrina. Same offense, same people in the building. Pete Carmichael somehow held a job for 20 years. 20 years. Imagine working in Thomas Keller's kitchen for 20 years and you can't make a grilled cheese sandwich. That is exactly what we saw with Pete Carmichael. And a totally untouched, archaic offense with Drew Brees gone. That offense was given a chance to see if it could work. And Mickey Loomis said, I've seen enough for 2 seasons. I've seen enough for 2 seasons. Kudos. And another part of this was the whole idea of like, okay, the offense sucks, fire Dennis Allen. That makes no sense. Absolutely no sense. Sean Payton went 7-9 with peak Drew Brees 3 straight years. Why? Because the defense was bottom 3 in the NFL. What kind of sense would it have made to say our defense is terrible, fire Sean Payton? Wouldn't have fixed anything. So kudos to Mickey for saying, you know what, the defense is pretty sweet. I'm starting to think it might be a bit of an offensive issue. And we absolutely, I'm all in. I don't even think it's too early to say it. We nailed it. 10 out of 10 higher with Klint Kubiak. Because this ain't a fluke. This is not something that's unsustainable. This isn't like Jeremy Lin with the Knicks where you know it's going to come to an end. You know, like, he's not going to score 40 points a game. You know this is unsustainable. There's nothing unsustainable about this offense. There's nothing unsustainable about this game plan. When you have the players that we have, when you have a play caller like we have, when you have a system how we have, a design how we have, and a schedule as soft as we have, if you can do this to the Cowboys, you can do this to every team on that schedule. And if you can do this to the Cowboys, you can do this to every team in the NFC. And if you can do this to every team on the NFC, is it that crazy to think this team could be in the Super Bowl? I don't know. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know in the comments below what you thought. Fantastic stuff here from Good Morning Football. Kyle Brandt never, ever, ever has led me astray. Good stuff, KB. All right, ladies and gentlemen, get on down in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video.